Thank you for joining me in this supplement to the main message. So, I'm assuming that you've watched and listened to Rose reading our passage from Genesis, the first book of the Bible, chapter 28. And I'm assuming that you've also watched or listened to the main message before you come to listen to this one. Do those two things first if you haven't, because this is just like some follow up bits to that, but I hope you'll find them valuable. Have you ever wondered, because I have plenty, why Jesus chose Judas Iscariot to be his close disciple? I mean, there were plenty of other people around. And why Jesus kept Judas, not just kept him, but included him in the close circle of his loved friends right up to the last minute, even whilst Jesus knew that Judas was betraying him to be crucified. It has to do, I think, with a set of truths, or a truth which the Jacob story of Genesis particularly brings to light. Because Jacob is the opposite of a moral hero. He is no spiritual giant. He's somebody you wouldn't really like if you met them, I suspect. At least I don't think I would, and I wouldn't advise anybody to hang out and learn those kinds of ways. But God saw something in Jacob, and God made a choice that I don't necessarily think was the best one, but God knew to be the best one, between Jacob and Esau, to carry the story of God with his people forward. Because that place, by all conventions, belonged to Esau. And in my opinion, Esau's a nicer guy. And Jacob is the less good choice. But then I don't see the way God sees things. The thing I need to learn from it, and this is a great lesson to have, we're still in the first book of the Bible, is that God does not include us on merit. He does not choose the nice people. He does not only welcome the good, but the evil as well. He does not show preference for those who are most like him, but he, in grace, chooses those of us like me who are very unlike him, and then sets to work to save us, to bring us to a better place. So the first thing that I want to say is that, and the way I'm handling this supplementary section this week is I've really got just a series of deductions from the text, if you like. I'm not going to go through the text in fine detail. I think, read that for yourself, get the story clear in your mind, and I want to suggest some of the conclusions that we would draw from it. So the first one is, well, God doesn't choose people for being the better choice, for being nicer or cleverer, or any of those things. The second one is that God does not follow what we think is normal. He is not bound by our cultural learning. I'm very bound by my cultural learning, and I try consciously not to be. But like you, I was brought up in a particular setting, a particular way. I've lived my adult life in particular settings, in particular ways, and I've absorbed what my cultures have taught me to consider right or good or normal. But I'm not God, and God is not shaped by those things the way I am and the way that you are. God is not bound by our cultural proper things. And so God's free to break them, and he certainly does here, because the culture could be in no doubt that Esau is the person who should be carrying the story forward. Going back to the Judas thing, God works in our wrong choices as well as our right choices. God works in the midst of our conflicts as well as in our peace times. God's ways are not subject to our approval or even our understanding. I don't think that Jacob is the better guy. I think Esau is. I do not understand why God would choose Jacob, apart from the fact that I do see a faith response in Jacob, but I don't know that that would have been absent in Esau. The point is, God's perplexing. Not only do we get in the gospel of Jesus a great gift of peace. Jesus says, my peace I leave with you, not as the world gives, do I give to you, but a very dynamic kind of peace. A good thing too, because God also perplexes us by not behaving in the ways we think that God ought to behave. God chooses unexpected people, unexpected places, places that are not anywhere particular, people who are not anything to be noticed. And God works in the midst of mess. Our faith is not a tidy set of answers to life's questions. Do you have friends or family who say to you, well, if God is a God of love, then this, or that? And I often think those things too. But my faith doesn't offer a tidy set of answers. It offers me Jesus, who's not a tidy set of answers, but a person. Ultimately, through Jesus, God offers me God. God offers me himself, so to speak. And that is not the same as saying Christianity is a religion with an answer to all the perplexing questions. It isn't. It's full of the perplexing questions, unanswered. And the Bible helps us know that from the beginning. God does not generally smooth the way for us, does sometimes, but he leaves enough bumps in the road, enough troubles ahead, because his promise to Jacob is not, I'll make it perfect for you. You won't have any problems whilst you're this refugee trying to settle in a far place. Some good things are going to happen to you there, but also some bad. What's going to be true is I'll be with you, I'll sustain you in it, and I will ultimately bring you to the place you most need to be. That is some distance off. If it's any comfort to you that this cheat, this wily, cunning, unpleasant character enjoys God's not approval, but choice, then at least know that in that journey ahead, Jacob would get cheated as much as he cheats anyone, and cheated by a member of the family too. So he kind of got a bit of a dose of what he handed out. But that's not the main point of the story. The main point, I think, is that grace, which is God's character, is wild. It refuses to obey what we would think it should. God refuses to obey what we think he should. And so Jacob wakes up and he's made new. He's now a person of faith. Something has changed. He says, I didn't know what was going on. This is not what I expected. But now I have to respond. Well, he doesn't respond in all the ways that God would have him respond. But he does nonetheless put his faith in God and begin to put a marker out. He renames this no place. Bethel means house of God. He says, well, God's here. I just thought it was nowhere. And there is the big lesson for us as we come to the time of celebrating the gift of the Holy Spirit. The presence of God everywhere. The heaven touching the earth. Eternity invading time and space. The connection between the divine and the human happening all the time in places we don't expect it to, where we're not noticing it, and in people that we're not noticing it, and in us. Heaven touches earth in so many ways. Why not this week make it evident like Jacob did? He sort of built a little structure. He put something in place to say, this says that God's here. I love it when our churches do that, and we do something in our mission that shows the love of the eternal God, and it says, this says that God's here. And I love it that you and I this week will get a chance to do stuff that goes, this says that God is in my story. God is in your story. God is around. There is traffic between heaven and earth. God bless you. Have a great week.